Gears of War Damnation, Chapter 5, Berserk. Me and my brother just hid for hours in that office, waiting for everything to end. We could still hear those things walking around inside the main hallway of the motel. The screams of the people that they were killing died out, and all that was left was silence. We decided to take a risk and see what was going on in the area. We walked down the main hallway. They were definitely gone. We got lucky. I guess they were just more fixated on the rooms and where they thought people were, rather than searching every single corner of the building. The office was the only place that was untouched. The hallway, though, that felt like walking into hell. All you could see from one corner to the other was death, blood, bodies, flesh. All that was covering everything from corner to corner. All that remained was remains. I had to hold a huge urge from throwing up at the sight of the corpses, and the smell alone was unbearable. Me and my brother decided to make it to the other end, to the main entrance, and try to see where we can go from there. We went outside and it seemed like the sun was barely starting to rise. The things were gone, and everywhere we walked, the whole town was just completely wiped out. We could hear a rustling, something scratching or walking. Me and my brother got scared and we instantly thought it could have been one of those things, or maybe one of those little ones with the fangs and the claws. But what appeared surprised me. It was the little girl. The little girl from the doctor office. She appeared before us and she, well, covered in blood and looked a little battered, she looked okay. She wasn't injured, but she was definitely broken mentally. She looked like she was in shock. She couldn't believe what happened. She just stood there with this blank stare in her face, like she was gone. I kneeled before her and looked her straight in the eyes, and even though we were literally face to face, eye to eye, it was like I wasn't even in front of her. She was in extreme shock, and I couldn't leave her there. I put my arms on her shoulders and tried to talk to her. Asked her what her name was, if she was okay. She gave me no response. Her eyes were just so lifeless. I tried to grab her hand and try to lead her somewhere else, but she randomly screamed and ran from me. Me and my brother followed her because we weren't going to let this poor little girl be stranded alone in this empty town. We weren't going to let her die. Even if we had to capture her or something like that, we weren't going to leave her alone. We needed to get her somewhere safe. So we chased her down the street. We found ourselves in front of the little hospital, the little medical place that we originally went to when we first entered the town. She ran into the main entrance and we followed her in there. The same exact thing for that little place as well. Nothing but bodies, blood, corpses. She ran into the far end of the hallway and we needed to get to her. We needed to get to her. We ended up in the main office in the back, where her father worked, the man who owned this clinic. And what we found in there, I still don't understand. What we saw was bodies, yes, but they were skinned. I don't understand. What was happening here? Did those things do this? Since when were they skinning people? My first thought was that the monsters were doing this. But that wasn't the case. We came across weird records, and while this man was a doctor and he technically worked for the COG, he had his own hidden agenda. He was tricking people to stay at his clinic, at the little hospital. And when they felt comfortable enough, he would drug them, kill them, strip them of their resources, and then skin their bodies. Why was he doing this? Why? We noticed that within the last few days, he was barely doing this. It's only been 2 days since these things came out. And it turns out that he worshipped them. And he felt like they were an entity that God pushed on the world. And the reason why he was killing people and doing these vile things is because he was trying to appease to them. He was trying to become one of them. This man is sick! What? Where is he? We heard a few footsteps behind us. We turned around to see him there, standing before us. He was holding a gun, and his little daughter was with him. They were both covered in blood, and from what I can tell, he used her to lure us here. I immediately questioned him what he was doing and what he wanted. He told me that these monsters were a symbol of God. And he was going to be on the right side of this war. He immediately took a shot at my brother, clipped him in the arm. My brother fell. I immediately charged him, and then he shot at me too, clipped me in the leg. I fell down as well. I sat there in a pool of my own blood, wondering, what now? What am I gonna do now? I could see the little girl just standing there behind him with a blank stare. She knew what type of man her father was. Regardless, she just had this blank stare that she was still in disbelief of what was happening. Almost like if she was just in a bad nightmare, waiting to be waked up. If only it was that simple. I laid there staring at that man, pointing that gun right at me. He gave me this most wicked smile, almost like a jester telling a joke. I saw him pull back the hammer on his gun, ready to end my life. When out of nowhere I could hear a loud stomping. Stomping. The second he heard it, his smile faded, and I was no longer the center of his attention. I was happy, but if I knew why, I wouldn't have been celebrating. I could hear stomping, stomping. It was getting closer. And as it got closer, I could hear a weird breathing. Heavy. Deep. Out of nowhere, I could hear him running down the hall, trying to make it somewhere, trying to get away. but I could hear a loud scream. I can see this big, towering creature chasing after him. He ran down the hall, and I guess he must have got around it or something because he came back down the hallway through the entrance to his office. I laid there inside of that room, seeing everything. He stood before the doorway, and whatever that thing was, rushed him, smashed him, broke him. All I saw was fist, blood. All I could hear was tearing and screams. This thing was huge. 7, maybe even 8 feet tall, towering over him, destroying him. Where was the little girl? That was the first thing that came to my mind. I could see her cowering in a corner as this thing ripped her father apart. She tried to make a break for it. That wasn't smart. It hurt her, chased her, ended her. She suffered the same fate as her father. While me and my brother laid there, injured from the gun wounds, witnessing this violence. Now, we're stuck. This thing is still there, searching, smelling, listening, waiting for us to make the first move.